Hey everybody, welcome back to the farm. So what a difference a week makes, and these little colts here being with Gene and Grace. Remember last week, Gene and Grace were kind of pushing them around and kind of establishing their pecking order and showing them who was the boss. But they have come quite along. You see Max is walking up to me. Well, the girls are going to keep them from walking up to me, but the girls want to be fed, and we're going to take them over and feed them. But I wanted to address a couple of things last week. See her, she's pushing her. Hey. These girls they know that I'm their person, and so they want to be with me all the time, and they don't like anybody else really being around me. But you'll notice that, see, they're very inquisitive. They're coming up. I want to address a couple of things real quick. I told you that the Amish do not handle their horses. The Amish do handle their horses if they know their horse is going to be kept and they are going to add it to their herd. But if they know when that baby is foaled that it is going to the auction, they are not going to handle it. They are not going to handle it at all. Grace pushing them off. They are not going to handle that baby. That is what happened with these babies. These babies were completely unhandled. And a few of you failed to recognize that in the videos last week. So I want to go back and re-emphasize the fact that there is a huge difference between a foal that is born on an English farm, English being you and I, versus being born on an Amish farm. An English farm, you know, some of you were saying, go watch this guy's videos and go watch this guy's videos. He does this and he does that. What you're failing to realize is the mare is still there with that foal. And that foal has been handled from birth since day one. It's had human touch since day one. Loving and petting and stroking and brushing and everything. And wherever that mare went, that baby went. If the mare went into the stall, the baby went into the stall. If the mare went to the pasture, the baby went to the pasture. If the mare went to the onto the horse trailer, the baby went to the horse trailer. Then the baby was weaned, but it was already imprinted on the humans, and so it kind of knew the routine. These babies, 100% completely unhandled. They got a halter thrown on them, they got shoved on a trailer, and they got sent to auction. Okay? So there's a huge difference. It's like somebody taking a wild horse off of the BLM land out west, a wild Mustang, and then breaking it and turning it into the 100-day Mustang challenge where they're riding it and doing everything. Now, you'll notice they still have their halters on. So halter police, turn your sirens off. They're going to have their halters on. Gene and Grace didn't have their halters on, okay? But the babies do have theirs on. The reason they do is because I don't have any control over the babies without the halters. Some of you said, take the halters off and train them to a feed bucket. I don't want to train them to a feed bucket, guys. If you go back and watch any of my videos from the last 3 years, you'll see that my horses come to me. I don't go to my horses. And they come to me because they're in a routine and they know what that routine is. And the routine is coming to the barn every day to eat and get harnessed and get brushed and drive, okay? The Amish not being hands-on until they train their horses are not, they're just like this right now. They'll be out there in the pasture eating. When you call their name, they will look up at you. If you don't have a feed bucket in your hand, they're going to continue to do that right there. And then when you walk out there into the pasture with a lead rope and a halter to catch them, they start heading the other way. And every one of you that's got horses knows the walk away when they see you with a halter and a lead rope. Those of you that have never had a horse, that just watch vicariously through other videos, you don't know what that's like, and they just walk off. Now, if you have a feed bucket, they will come right to you, and they will do, you can catch them, you can do everything. The reason I don't want to train them to a feed bucket is because when I need to catch them, guess what I'm not going to have? That's right, a feed bucket with feed. And what do we do when we have a feed bucket without feed? We trick them. We hand out the bucket, we start clapping it and trying to make noise. They say, oh, there's my person, he's got my feed. He comes over there, realizes there's nothing in the bucket, and then he checks out. He turns left, he turns right, and he starts going the other way when he starts seeing you trying to throw a lead rope over his neck so you can get the halter over his muzzle. It's like the little boy that cried wolf. It works a couple of times, but eventually the horses are like, no, I'm not playing your games anymore. You're tricking me, okay? So I don't want to train them to a feed bucket. Those 3 mares that I boarded over the summer, they could care less if I was here or not. If I had a feed bucket, they would come to me. But if I didn't have a feed bucket, they would stay out and graze, okay? I don't want my horses trained that way. I'm going to show you the way that I'm training my horses now. I'm going to go over here to the barn, and that what I was saying of what a difference a week makes, I'm going to go over here to the barn, and I'm going to set up, and you're going to see what the babies are doing. You remember last week I was saying that it was very important for me to get the colts to Jean and Grace so that Jean and Grace could show them the way. These babies that were just weaned and taken away from their parents, they don't have a lead horse anymore. So I need Jean and Grace to take over as their lead horses. Let them know that it's okay for human touch. And so now what's happening is when I pull in the morning, they are standing they see me, they walk over to the gate and they wait at the gate. I put the halters on Jean and Grace. I put the halters on, and then I open up the gate and they walk across the driveway into the barnyard and into their stalls. The babies are doing the exact same thing. They're walking into the box stalls. The problem I'm having right now is that Titus and Max want to go into the same stall. Titus, I've told you already, Titus is the leader, Maximus is the follower. Maximus is never going to be the initiator. He's always going to be the follower. I'm pretty convinced of it. And I've only had him 3 weeks because I see everything. Titus is with Jean and Grace, and Maximus is always bringing up the rear. Titus walks this way, Max walks that way. Max never goes anywhere and initiates anything. So he is going to follow, my guess is he is going to follow Titus into his stall, and then I'm going to walk into the stall. Now the halters come into play. I'm going to grab his halter and I'm going to lead him out and lead him into his stall. We've only done this 5 times and they do it great. It's only going to take a couple more times for Maximus to realize that, hey, that's not my stall, this is my stall. And eventually they'll be going into their own stalls. Then I can close the stalls, then I can go in there and I can do hands-on and brushing and all that. Now you remember they had the glue on their tail, and the hip tag was glued to their tail. And I tried to get that stuff off. And they put so much glue on there, I had to cut it off. So I got a real clean job on Maximus, a real clean job. And on Titus, Titus doesn't like you really around his butt. So I've just been he doesn't like you behind him. Not yet. So I've been taking my soft brush and I've just been brushing him and making sure that I brush his tail. Even though I'm not brushing it, I'm brushing over it to give him the sensation. And I've almost got his cut out, but I had to cut off so much of his tail. It's going to grow back. The hair was going to grow back, but it's still being a dock tail. It's still going to be a short tail. But I hate doing that because it's going to take, you know, the hair is, you know, 12 inches long right now, but where I had to cut it, now it's 3 inches long, and I just hate it. But there's nothing I can do about it. I had to get that crap out of there. The way he was flicking his tail real fast, it gave me the sensation, or it gave me the impression, not sensation, but it gave me the impression that possibly it was pulling. Like if a little girl had a ponytail in her hair or had bubble gum in her hair, there's always that 1 or 2 hair that's pulling on your scalp, and it's, you know, it's just pulling that follicle. And I've got to believe the way that he flicks his tail real quick is that that glue is pulling on a couple of the follicles. So I've got it 75% cut out. Hopefully I'll be able to get it cut out the rest of the way today. But let's go over here to the barn, and I will get feed in their stalls, and then I'll open up the alleyway and I'll lead them across, and you'll see what happens. Okay, so they're down there at the water trough right now. I have trained Jean and Grace to come and stand right here so that I can put their halters on, and they will put their head down and allow me to put the head in their halters. But before I do that, I am going to put some hay in these, put some grain in their stalls before I bring them over. All right, so I'm putting Titus in the stall here, and I'm putting Max over here. And what they're getting is a 3-quart scoop of oats, and they love the smell of this oats bucket. So what I did, I used to keep this bucket somewhere else, and they were going directly to this bucket. So what I did is I put the bucket right outside their stalls so that they would stop at their stalls just until they get the routine. And then Jean and Grace are over here like they've always been since I've had them. And again, I've raised Jean and Grace since they were 5 months old. And Jean and Grace are already over there pre-positioned to get their halters. I'll show you in just a second. Okay, so all this is set, and now the babies are over there with them. The babies are getting to know the routine. And again, the babies' halters are on. I am not to the point where I can put their halters on and off them at liberty like I can with Jean and Grace. So until that happens, they are going to wear their halters. But hopefully it's going to be just for another few days. And what I'll do is I'll go right over here. See, Jean and Grace are moving into position. They know the drill. And the babies are following right behind them. Now notice they'll put their head down into the halter. See, their heads are down. And I don't have to go up to put them in. They pick their heads up afterwards. But the initial part is easy. Jean is always first. Come here, Gracie. All right, step aside. Let your sister in. Go, let your sister in. Come here, Gracie. Jean, move out of the way. Come here, Gracie. Come here. Good girl. And Grace will keep her head down. Okay? So now they know that it's time to go eat. So now what I have to do to get them into the barnyard is I have to close the driveway off, which is, I call the alley. I close the alley off. And yesterday, for the first time, and since I built this alley over 3 years ago, I forgot to close it. And I opened up the pasture, and all 4 of them walked out and went straight down the driveway. And a little unnerving, I'm not gonna lie, but all I did was call them, and they turned around and came back and went into the barnyard. And then of course the babies, they didn't know where they were, so what do babies do? They follow the adults. So I wasn't worried about them, and they turned around and came right back. It was about a minute of hair-raising antics. It wasn't as bad as it was in my head, but it was pretty bad. Okay, so now the alleyway is open. The only thing that's not open is the pasture gate. I'm gonna take you back over to the barn because I can't show you that and this, but I'm gonna take you back to the barn. I'm gonna show you the stalls, and you're gonna see all 4 of them walk across and go into their stalls without me putting a hand on them. Like I said, I'm gonna most probably have to lead Maximus out of Titus's stall, but this is the way that I train them. They just come in automatically, and that's the way you want it. So again, that was the reason that I needed the babies to get introduced to Gene and Grace. So let me go over here and open this up. And if I had somebody here that could pan over here and watch this, you would see, but you'll see everybody come into view here in just a second. So let me unhook the electrical fence right here real quick. All right, the babies are already walking up to the fence. All right, I'm gonna unlock the gate. Gene and Grace are coming, and the babies are right behind them. Everybody is walking comfortably and casually across. There's Jean in the front, and she's going to go into her stall. And then there's Grace, and she's going to go into her stall. And then there's Titus, he's going to go into his stall. And then there's Maximus, he's going to go into Titus's stall, just like I said. So this is where the halters come in. Back. Come here, Max. Come here, buddy. Max, come here. Max, come here. Max, come here. Come on. You know where your stall is. Come on. Come on. Good boy. Okay, so Titus doesn't like his food hanging up. Come here, Titus. Come here. Titus does not like his food hanging. He wants it on the ground. And he's going to kick it until you put it on the ground. And now I'll go over here and hook up Gene and Grace. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. I just whacked her with the tie down. I'm sorry, baby. Gene, Grace. Good girl. And now, that was so much more stress-free than trying to lead them physically over there and pulling them and pushing them and everything. They did it on their own, an automatic, and that was day 6. I thought it was day 5, but I think it's day 6 that they've come over. And it's only going to take a couple more days for Max to go into his stall. But you saw how easily he came out and led into his stall. And now they're completely fine being in their stall, and they'll stay in there. Titus will get so comfortable that he'll, actually close his eyes and just not lay in there, but just stand, with his head resting on the wall in between him and Maximus. So, like I said, I was able to get the sticker off of Maximus, but it's still on Titus. Maximus still has a braid in his forelock. The little 15-year-old Amish boy put that in there before they ran him through the auction. He doesn't like you up here around his head. He'll let you be there for a second, but then he starts pulling, and that's just going to take time to let him know that it's okay for my hands to be there. And I'll get that braid taken out. But from where we were a week ago to where we are today, is huge. I'm just going to grab the brushes real quick. Now you see on Max how on his legs and on his belly he's got marks on there, and that's, he likes to they like to poop next to the hay bale and urinate next to the hay bale, but he also likes to sleep next to it. So that's what you see there, is him being stained right here. You see he's jumpy just a little bit, but we're getting there. He's got a real bad cow lick in his mane, so that part of his mane grows to the other side. It doesn't matter how many times I try to comb it over this way, it's going to go back over there. Maybe once it gets a little bit of length on it, I'll be able to do something with it. But now he gets his hair all matted. Like you see how it's not matted, but it's like bedhead. So it's just the way that he sleeps and then what he's laying in, and it just kind of gets hard. And then his fur lays funny. But this is the soft brush that I've been using. And see, I've been going over his butt. And once he realizes that, I'm not going to do anything, he'll stop being jumpy. But we still got, it's 81 degrees today. The flies are out, and so he's flinching a lot because of flies. But I have been physically brushing his tail with the mane and tail brush, and he is okay with it. He poops on the backs of his legs. That's my foot, buddy. He poops on the backs of his legs, and but and then what I've been doing instead of walking around behind him, I've been going underneath his neck to let him know that it's okay for me to rub all over you in different ways than just my hands. And he seems to tolerate it okay. He may back up just a little bit, but he's going to come right back. So you notice their cough is gone. Some of you had commented, have you had a vet look at that cough and stuff like that, and has the vet been out? And no, the vet hadn't been out. You don't vaccinate foals until they're at least 6 months old. No different than vaccinating a human baby. They've got to be of a certain age. So they're coming out on November the 15th, which they'll be 6 months and a week old at that point. And they'll get their first round. They should get 2 rounds. Instead of giving them the full dose, they'll give them a half dose, and then they'll come back in 30 days and give them the second half. That's the way we did it on Gene and Grace when they were 5 months old. And then when they were a year old, they got their full dose. But I did turn in stool samples yesterday and asked them if it would okay if we could do a stool sample and I could get them wormed. And they said, yeah, that would be fine. So I'm waiting on those stool samples to come back so I know what to worm them with. You can just go buy a wormer and give them a wormer. The problem is that wormers only work on certain kind of worms, and there's different kinds of worms. So you need to know what the worms are that are in your horse before you give them a wormer, because if you give them a wormer that doesn't attack the type of worm they have, it does absolutely no good. So take a stool sample to your vet. Take a stool sample to your vet and let them run it under their little scanner, and they'll tell you what the worm count is and what kind of wormer to get. So he doesn't get bedhead fur. So Max here, his fur lays differently than Titus's. He doesn't get the bedhead fur like Maximus does. These guys are from two different farms. They're not from the same farm or from the same bloodlines, two totally different, where Jean and Grace are 7/8 sisters. Titus was born May the 9th, and Maximus was born May the 10th. And so they're just a day apart. Now, what I have found on Titus is if you get behind him, he'll kick out. So he's just not real comfortable with you being behind him. Not yet, but again, we'll get there. You can see he's very tolerant. He's getting so much better than he was. It's just hands-on, hands-on, hands-on. And again, when you're dealing with an English horse that has been touched by a human every single day of its life, that's an imprinted horse. And when you're dealing with an Amish horse that's never been touched, it's an unhandled horse. And you can't appreciate it until you've had an unhandled horse. And it's real easy to sit on the other side of the screen and say, you know, what you need to do and how you need to do it. But what it boils down to is it's just time. You know, each horse comes along differently. They develop differently mentally, and they develop differently physically. And it just takes time. It's you know, they're herd animals and they want to be with their own people. And once they accept you as their people, they'll do anything you want them to do. But they've got to learn to trust you first. You see how he lays his head on that center wall? He'll go to sleep right there with his head on there. And I can go on the other side. I can go into Max's stall, and I can get right up on his head, let him smell my back, let him smell my shoulders. And he'll let me scratch his head all day long right there. And you see his sticker is hanging off just a little bit. Like I said, it's about 3/4 of the way off. And I had to cut a lot of his tail. But it is what it is. And I knew that they were most probably going to get over their coughs. It's just like you and I getting a cough. And we never go to the doctor and we never take medicine. We don't ever do anything. We have a cough and a runny nose and sneezing for, 2 or 3 days, and then it's over. And I knew once these guys got away from the environment they were in, which was out in Texas at the livestock yard with 150 other horses that were sick, I'm sure some of them, because that's where they picked up their cough. I knew once they were in a clean area that they would get over their cough without any antibiotics or anything. But the vet was on standby so that if they didn't get any better, then we could call and get something going, but we didn't need to. You see their harnesses and their collars are hanging here. These are Jean and Grace's. If the babies were going to stay in here 24 hours, or stay in here for an extended period of time, I would take this stuff out. But they're only going to be in here for 20 or 30 minutes until everybody's done, everybody's groomed, and then we'll let everybody out. Hopefully in a week or so, we'll be able to take their halters off. Not in a week, but in a few days, we'll be able to take their halters off because they're so good at coming over here now. If I didn't have the halter on Max, I wouldn't be able to lead him out of here and over there into his stall. But if I go up and try to catch them in the pasture and physically go up to them, I have to let them come up to me, and they come up to me and let me pet them and everything. But if they didn't have halters on and I were to try to get them, I couldn't get them. And when I go to put their halters on, they're still reluctant to let me put them on and off. So what we've been doing is practicing in here where I've got them in a confined area. I can take their halter off, and then I can put their halter back on. And that's what we've been playing. We started that yesterday, and we'll continue to do that so that they understand the whole premise of it coming off and coming back on. Then that way, when I go to put Gene and Grace's on, the babies will let me put theirs on. I can lead them all across. Then they'll come in here and eat. And I put the girls on so that I can tie them up. If you don't tie them up, then it's hard to brush them, it's hard to harness them, it's hard to do anything because they're going to take a bite, and then they're going to step out, and they're going to walk around the barn, and then they're going to come back and take another bite, and then they're going to walk over here into this stall and look around, then they're going to go back and get another bite. And so it teaches them bad habits. But by tying them up into a tie stall, it teaches them to stand tied. And by teaching them to stand tied right next to each other in the position that they drive the wagon, then what that does is when you tie them up to a hitching post or tie them up to the side of the wagon or whatever while you're waiting to go drive, they're already used to standing tied. And if you don't ever tie them up, then they're constantly pulling, and you can break equipment and break gear, and you can create a mess. So you teach them to stand in the tie stalls, and it pays huge dividends on the back end when you're driving. Because when you're harnessing them and you're doing stuff, they have to be tied, or it's no different than putting a horse in a cross tie to saddle it. You don't saddle a horse when he's not tied up because he isn't going to stand there, he's going to walk off. But there are times when you're out doing something with a wagon that you may not be doing something for a while. If you're plowing or you're cutting grass, you may be sitting for 30 or 45 minutes, and you need to be able to tie your team off to a pole or to a tree or to something to where they'll stand until you're ready for them to go. And you know that they're going to stand tied. So that's why they're tied up. I put Titus's grain in his bucket every single day, and every single day I forget to put it on the ground. And he reminds me every single day that, hey, I don't want it hanging on the wall, I want it on the ground. The girls know that he spills his grain. And so as soon as I untie the girls, they will come over here and pick up the grain off the floor. But you see how he's relaxed. He's got his head up there, resting it. He's got his ears back. He's listening to me. It would appear his ears are pinned, but his ears are not pinned. His ears are backwards because he's listening to what I'm saying, while his eyes are super heavy, and he's just resting comfortably, supporting his head on that wall. And that's like his favorite position, and he will stand there until I open up the door and let him out. He's not standing there because he wants out. He's just standing there because that's where he goes to sleep and rest. He'll see how his legs cocked. He's just chillaxing. Now Max is a lot slower eater than Titus. So you hear Titus over there, I put his bucket back up, and so of course he's over there rifling around in it. But Gene and Grace are already done. But because they're used to standing after they're done eating, they're not over here kicking and pawing and whinnying and making all kinds of ruckus because they're used to standing tied. And as soon as I untie them, then they will be more than glad to go and graze around in the barnyard for a little bit. Over, over, over. If you remember the other day when I was telling her to move over, or a couple of videos ago, we were in the pasture and she didn't move over. Titus. Whoa, buddy. So I told you that if we were in her tie stall, she would move over. And not only is the vet going to come out on the 15th of November, Grace, not only is the vet going to come out and give them their first round of vaccines, and we'll have a visit with the vet when she comes out. The farrier is going to come out on that visit as well. Now, the Amish farrier that I was using, he came, I think, last week, and I wasn't here to where he could come. We were gone. And so I got wind that there was another Amish farrier coming from Mount Hope, which is in Ohio, where I go. Over. Come on, over, move your butt. And I had caught wind that an Amish farrier from Mount Hope was coming, and he works the auction that I go to. If you've seen those videos of the Mid-Ohio Draft Horse Sale, which I didn't go to this year, by the way, because I went and got Titus and Max the same time. But I've got reservations for March, so you will definitely see that coming up in March. But anyway, the Mount Hope farrier is coming the same day as the vet. So I don't know this farrier, but I've heard good things about him. I've got a new wagon. I've got a Pioneer trail wagon, a covered wagon, and it's on a Pioneer running gear. And I'm going to be going up to South Dakota to see my buddy who bred these girls. And I'm going to go up there and spend a day or two with him. And we're going to get out there and do some things, spreading some manure and a couple other things around his surrounding area. We may have to load the girls up and go somewhere, but I think everything he's talking about doing is just kind of local right there. They've only got a couple more get-togethers. I think they've got a plow, but I don't think just the timing of it with family issues on both ends and the holidays coming up and stuff like that. And I'm trying to get there before it snows because, you know, he was sending me pictures of the thermometer, and it was like 20 below. You know, we very rarely get to 30 here, and it'll stay 30 for, you know, till 9:45 in the morning, and then it's up to 38 kind of deal, you know. And if it snows here, we get snow one day out of the year, and it's gone the next day. But it shuts the whole town down because everybody's driving crazy. But so we're trying to do it before the snow, but that's going to be a fun visit. We're going to go up there and drive around. We'll drive the wagon, and we'll be driving the gray mares. You've seen the gray mares on a lot of shorts. You saw them on the pictorial of the manure spreading, the only gray mares that were on there. So we'll be spending a lot of time behind those girls. And they're both in foal for 2025, and then they're going to be sold after they've weaned their babies. So my buddy Andy over in the UK will load them gray mares up to you in July and send them over there to you because I know you absolutely love them gray mares. What I'll typically do is leave them over here in the barnyard and they'll walk around and they'll eat. All right, Jean, you ready, baby? Back. Oh, I'm sorry. Her salt lick covers up the grain, and she will not move the salt lick out of the way to get the grain underneath it. She'll wait for me to do it. Grace, on the other hand, will move it and get the grain out from underneath it. Back. Whoa. Okay, go on. So Jean spilled oats on the center wall. They got to get the oats off the center wall. Let me get Jean's halter. If I'm doing anything with her halter, she ain't going to pick her head up. She's going to leave her head down. And now they're free to go wherever they want. Let's get these young ones out. Titus, you ready, buddy? You ready? Come on. Good boy. Max, you ready, buddy? You see her, she's in there in Titus's stall, just like I said. Going in there to get stuff up off the ground. And now Titus is in her stall. So they've got to check out each other's area, and that's fine. So guys, that's going to do it. You see Titus over here, he loves that salt lick. That salt lick is small enough for him to kind of gum and get in his mouth all the way. It's not small enough for him to actually ingest it, but he can really gum it good, where the other ones, was a whatever it is, 8x8 block or a 10x10 block, however big it is. But this is a smaller one, and he really enjoys coming over here and attacking that. So they're doing real good, real pleased with it, and I appreciate you guys tuning in this week. And as always, remember who you are. Be kind to those around you. Stand up for what you believe in.